we're talking more about chronic pain. When it's acute pain, it's much more straightforward because it could be an acute injury is completely different. Like you did a deadlift and you tweaked your back, you felt it, it popped. Like, yeah, that's going to take you maybe 2 weeks to just get past and you'll know, oh, it was a muscle. Like you can pinpoint it, you can show it, you press it, you feel it, But yeah, with chronic pain, you might have to avoid those movements for a certain period of time. And then again, with graded exposure, and graded is the key word. Because what do people do, right? They have an injury, they start doing their rehab exercises. In the case of the low back is like side plank, bird dogs, dead bugs, right? Like that's the starting point for a lot of people. And that's great. I mean, first, the reason why those exercises work, it's not necessarily because they're magical or because they're increasing the stability of your vertebra or anything like that. It's just because you're changing that relationship between that input and that output. You're making your muscles tighten up and do exercise in a safe way, in a way that's not threatening. You're bringing blood flow and oxygen to the tissues. You have that analgesic pain relief from just contracting your muscles in general. That's why stretching feels good. That's why yoga feels good. It's not because it's magical. It's because it stimulates specific receptors on your tendons and on your muscles that give you that feel-good sensation. The problem is that they go from that back under the bar.
Right.
And that's the problem. There's no ramp up, graded exposure to the movement that was once painful. So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They go from the prehab exercises right back to where they were pre-injury. And that's a massive mistake because you have to build back that tolerance.
I think one of the things that makes the prehab exercises so effective is not the actual prehab exercises themselves. It's the fact that they're not barbell movements.
That too.
And it gives you a good gap of time. Time, I think, and along with movement are probably the only two things that have any sort of real scientific proof behind them in terms of pain management, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Time and movement, that's it.
There's like nothing else. Like there's not a lot of evidence of, there's some empirical evidence of people saying like, hey, I think this helped and stuff like that, of myofascial release and stuff. But there's not really, you can't do like an MRI and be like, oh my God, look how much scar tissue the person had. And you can't like roll it out and then get another MRI and be like, oh yeah, the foam rolling, it got rid of all that. We don't see that, right?
No, dude, there's so many things that feel good but don't do jack shit. So many.
And they might help because they might help mentally, or it might make you,
that's good enough. If it helps you mentally, that's great. Even if it's placebo. But if you are getting pain relief, that's the goal. I don't care how you get it. Whether you got a massage, you got cupping, you got ART, you got...
But there's not a lot of science to validate some of those things.
No, in terms of the actual changes that happen in someone's body, no, there's really...
You can't measure it.
There's nothing conclusive, no. But if it makes you feel good and if it opens up a window of time where you can train relatively pain-free or with a lower amount of pain, then by all means. And it goes back to what you were saying about mobility. Like stretching feels good, right? But it doesn't necessarily, lead to long-lasting tissue changes. It's just, stretching, all it is a reflection of your nervous system. Like your ability to quiet down that muscle and let the opposite side elongate. Essentially, it's a marker of the nervous system. But it's not really changing anything structurally or protecting you from injuries in the future or anything like that. But if it feels good to you and it opens up the possibility of a training window or even like it breaks the pain signal even temporarily for an hour or two, it helps. So I used to do a lot of Mark Pro, like the 10 system. I used to do a lot of that. And I was very aware that it's not doing anything long lasting. Like it's not necessarily fixing anything that's going on my back. But, for the 30 minutes I had it on, and then for the following 2 hours, I'd feel looser. I'd feel better. My back wouldn't be bugging me as much, and I would train.
Hi, Project Family. We talk about meat all the time on the podcast because protein is essential for your health. That's why I partner with Piedmontese. And if you head to their website, they have so much different types of beef. They have beef sticks, beef jerky, tons of different cuts of meat. You should go check them out. Andrew, how can they learn more?
You guys got to head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. And at checkout, enter promo code POWER to save 25% off your entire order. And if your order is over $150 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
That time. So
What about like maybe helping correct some imbalances? Just example, like when I do a pigeon stretch with my left knee forward, it's like, oh, okay, I can get down pretty deep. It feels good. Right knee forward, oh my gosh, like it is, way tighter than the other side. But if I go a couple rounds, it can start to open up. And then as time has moved on, it like the tightness level has almost like caught up. They're not as bad or as different as they were once in the past. So what about something like that where it's like maybe it could be help rebalancing some of my like differences in my left and right side?
So the same way as assuming that a lack of stability would lead to pain, you'd be assuming that a lack of mobility would lead to pain. And it's also not a fair assumption. Like I know so many people who are so immobile yet are never injured. So it wouldn't be something that you would do to reduce the likelihood of an injury or even to, for anything like that. But as a rule of thumb, I don't like asymmetries, especially if they're showing up in your movement because of what I said about the direction of the force. If you have a tight hip and you're squatting and you're very visibly and you can feel that you're leaning into one leg more than the other, and it correlates with the hip that you're having issues with, then maybe I'll be like, well, we have to find a way to dissipate the force into both hips rather than that force going straight into there.
Right.
I don't know how we're gonna do it. Maybe it's a mobility problem. Maybe it's on your hip. Maybe it's on your ankle. Maybe your spine is actually like a bit twisted, which would be normal too. I don't know. But always finding ways to make movement as symmetrical as possible in terms of the forces going through joints would be a good thing to do, but not something that you have to do.
With the idea that, for example, there are many different types of stretching, right? But you would wonder for a specific sport, because, for example, with powerlifting, you need a limited range of motion to be able to achieve these movements with load. So you don't need that much mobility or potentially flexibility. But with something like jiu-jitsu and even something with boxing, you would want to be able to get into certain ranges of motion without inhibition, because when you do get into those ranges, especially, I've noticed this especially with jiu-jitsu, and there is inhibition, that is places where people do manage to pull something or get injured. So that's where I wonder, like, you can't say that, people don't necessarily say that stretching will lead you not to get injured. But if you are more flexible, not just passively, but actively within these ranges, that will help you not to get injured when you do have to enter these ranges in competition and training, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think and FRC does a really good job at teaching that and giving tools to people. Giving
functional range and conditioning.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I mean, which is nothing new. It's a physical therapy technique that we've been doing since forever. It's like contract, relax techniques.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, like if you are somebody that participates in a sport that requires exposing yourself to kind of more unnatural positions and ranges of motion, not only exposing yourself to the position, but also generating force from those positions. Again, like anything, it's like making sure that the capacity of those tissues at that speed in that motion is primed and it's prepared for that. So for somebody like that's training jiu-jitsu or boxing or even Olympic weightlifting, with a barbell over your head in a squat position, you not only have to have the ability to access that range, you have to have the ability to stabilize that range and to have strength in that range as well.
Yes.
So it's exposing yourself to that range of motion and then strengthening that specific range of motion. I always think about it as like if you just stretch and don't follow it up with anything else, it's like typing a lengthy Word document and never clicking save. It's the same shit. Like it's just a waste of time in that sense. It feels good, yeah, sure, but like you didn't actually do anything. You can't use that range of motion.
Yeah. Hey, baby. I'm joking. Guys, like, comment, subscribe, and head to the Power Project Discord, all right? I know you enjoyed the video. Speak to y'all soon.